Hey guys, welcome back to JS for Justice. I was going to wait to present some of this stuff until a live on Friday, but the newest Kohberger filing has to do with everything that I was going to present to you guys on Friday. So I'm going to kind of put it out and try to make sense of it because it's a lot to unpack. So I've been digging into Gabriela Vargas, her testimony, what it means, why she could have been possibly visited by the FBI. Let's watch some clips, and then I found this article called The Intercept, and now I see that Brian Kohberger has mentioned it in his latest filing. So let's go through the clips that I had, the article screenshots I took.
The first thing that I did was I requested access to the case file. It was very easy to read through quite quickly.
Gabriela Vargas is a genetic genealogist, probably one of the best.
Okay, so here, this is a 48 hours episode, and I'm hoping that I don't get copyright struck on this. But this is her being interviewed about a case that she solved, and this is law enforcement screaming her accolades. That she is the best possibly in the world.
In the country, if not the world.
But I'm also a pink-haired, tattooed mom from California. It was 28 picograms, so small.
So the amount of DNA that came from this investigation was very, very small. It sounds very similar to what we have in the Kohberger case.
That you could never see it with the naked eye. Very, very, very small amount of DNA. It was deemed unsolvable prior to my involvement.
Okay, so she's saying that this case could not be solved for decades by the FBI, law enforcement, anyone else but her.
And I said, well, why don't you let me look at it? I concluded that I did not stand with the others. I believed that this case was extremely solvable.
Again, she's able to do what no one else could do. And it's important to keep this in mind because we're going to dig into why in just a minute.
And I believe that I could solve it.
Work. Incredibly, she was able to generate a genetic profile from the killer's trace DNA.
They can choose to opt into law enforcement matching. If they do that, I can see if they are a match to my suspect.
But that's not what she testified to in the Kohberger hearing. And that's where this gets interesting. She talks about people being opted out, but she testified that she can see everybody, not just the opted out folks.
Gabriela was able to use GED Match and the genetic profile she developed to start to build the family tree of Roxanne's killer.
So she was able to build a family tree that no one else could do. I'm still trying to figure this all out, so we're talking this through as we go.
They would have kids around 1940, maybe 1950. It would have to be one of their children.
The couple she found.
I then would go to utilize the manipulation tool, the loophole. You would then go click the top match and run their matches.
So in other words, you put the subject in, you get their matches, you take their top match, and you put that in the search, and then somehow there's a loophole where they can see everybody. Is this lady really world renowned, or was she just using a loophole? And we're going to get to the whole FBI visit. Let's get through this first.
So the top match of your subject's top match, you would run their matches, okay? Once you run their matches, there is a tool that allows you to edit that list of matches. So we're looking at the matches of the subject's top relative, not the subject's matches, right?
So she's run the subject, found their relatives, picked the top relative, and is running their matches. And she's saying that's the loophole. She's able to find people no one else can because she's not doing it how it's supposed to be done. She's manipulating the system. So who else is manipulating the system? Because when I went deeper, Leah Larkin, who also testified for Kohberger, she doesn't agree in this form of genealogy. And we're going to get into that deeper too. There's a lot to this whole faction.
When you edit the kit list, if you put the subject's kit number into this tool that you're going to now analyze, these matches, it tricks the system and allows you to see matches that you wouldn't have seen when you ran your initial match list.
So she just said it tricks the system. So one has to wonder, how long have they been tricking the system? How many people have tricked the system? Is law enforcement aware that they've been tricking the system? Is the FBI aware that there was a loophole? Did the FBI just find out about this loophole? Is that why they visited her? Or were they aware of the loophole and she just spilled the beans and that's why they visited her? One has to wonder, because the defense is the one that brought it up in court. The prosecution didn't bring her up in court, and now the prosecution's saying, we don't want to cross-examine her now. Whereas Thompson said before, we'll cross-examine her at a later time. Now they filed a motion. We're not going to cross-examine any of their witnesses. So are they worried about what's going to come out if they're cross-examined? I'm not grasping what came first. If law enforcement knew about the loophole or if they just found out about the loophole. Let's continue. Right. So in other words, if you do what you're supposed to, you won't see the opt-out customers. So in my opinion, if she did what she was supposed to, she wouldn't be solving all these cases.
And those can include people that did not agree with law enforcement to see their DNA.
Those matches that are revealed are only matches that have been opted out.
Only people that have been opted out.
Only the ones that are supposed to.
They're only the ones. If you see that the subject matches one of these people, because again, you're not looking at your subject's matches.
You're looking at theirs.
At that person's top cousin, let's say, that top cousin's matches, right? When you put your subject's kit number in there, you're going to see now his kit, her kit, compared against the matches of their top match. When you find, you then scroll down and you look, oh, here's the match for 100 centimorgans. You go back to your screen where you have your list of your subject matches and you say, I don't have a match with 100 centimorgans. That proves that that person has.
So what she's saying is she's taking what she's supposed to do and comparing it with the list of what she's not supposed to do and seeing who's missing from that list. And that's where she's getting her subjects. I don't know about this. I mean, I'm not a scientist. I don't know enough about this, but it sounds not legal. It sounds like this could be a problem for other cases that were solved this way. I don't know.
Opted out of law enforcement matching, but I'm still able to see them.
So I saved a few screenshots that I thought was interesting, okay? Because it's a very long article. I'll put the whole article in the description of this video. And you can read the whole thing. It's very descriptive. It's very long. But this is what I found interesting that I wanted to go over. So they're talking about this form of genetic genealogy using this loophole. And it says, despite those words of caution, Moore, talking about Cece Moore, who is another person like Gabriela, who does this type of genetic genealogy, says, despite those words of caution, Moore is one of several high-profile genetic genealogists who exploited a loophole in a commercial database called GED Match, allowing them to search the DNA of individuals who explicitly opted out of sharing their genetic information with police. So Cece Moore, from what I read, is an actress turned genealogist. All of this is so weird to me. So the loophole, which a source demonstrated for The Intercept, which shows me that someone demonstrated this for them. This is not someone who wrote this article fly by night. This is someone who was researching this, meeting with people. This is nuts. The loophole, which a source demonstrated for The Intercept, allows genealogists working with police to manipulate search fields within a DNA comparison tool to trick the system into showing opted-out profiles. In records of communications reviewed by The Intercept, who's giving The Intercept their communication records? Moore and 2 other forensic genetic genealogists discuss the loophole and how to trigger it. In a separate communication, one of the genealogists described hiding the fact that her organization had made an identification using an opted-out profile. This is exactly what I was worried about. The communications are a disturbing example of how genetic genealogists and their law enforcement partners, in their zeal to close criminal cases, skirt privacy rules put in place by DNA database companies to protect their customers. How common these practices are remains unknown, in part because police and prosecutors have fought to keep details of genetic investigations from being turned over to criminal defendants. So I don't know if this is exposing some loophole, backdoor way they've been doing things, but it sounds like they have communications that these genetic genealogists are discussing the loophole and admitted that they used it in one case, at least one case. So what happens with that case now? And then finding out that Leah Larkin doesn't agree with this type of genetic genealogy makes me think she's the one that asked Gabriela to testify, because she might have wanted this to come out because she doesn't like the fact that they're doing it. So is this like Leah Larkin's vendetta? I'm not sure what's going on here. As commercial DNA databases grow and the use of forensic genetic genealogy as a crime-fighting tool expands, experts say the genetic privacy of millions of Americans is in jeopardy. To Tiffany Roy, a DNA expert and lawyer, the fact that genetic genealogists have accessed private profiles while simultaneously preaching about ethics is troubling. If we can't trust these practitioners, we certainly cannot trust law enforcement, she said. These investigations have serious consequences. They involve people who have never been suspected of a crime. At the very least, law enforcement actors should have a warrant to conduct a genetic genealogy search. Anything less is a serious violation of privacy. And then there are Family Tree DNA and GED Match, which grant police access, but give users the choice of opting in or out. Both allow anyone to upload their DNA results and have upward of 1.8 million profiles. But neither company routinely publicizes the number of customers who have opted in, said Leah Larkin. Here we go. This is Leah Larkin. This is the one that testified for Kohberger, a veteran genetic genealogist and privacy advocate from California. Larkin writes about issues in the field, including forensic genetic genealogy, which she does not practice. On her website, The DNA Geek, Larkin estimates that roughly 700,000 GED Match profiles are opted in. She suspects that even more are opted in on Family Tree DNA. Opting in is the default for the company's U.S. customers, and it's not obvious how to opt out. But even opting out of law enforcement searches doesn't guarantee that a profile won't be accessed. A loophole in GED Match offers users working with law enforcement agencies a backdoor to accessing protected profiles. A source showed, the source showed them, The Intercept, how to exploit the loophole. It was not an obvious weakness or one that could be triggered mistakenly. Rather, it was a backdoor that required experience with the platform's various tools to open. GED Match's parent company, Verigen, did not respond to a request for comment. In forensic genetic genealogy circles, the GED Match loophole had long been an open secret. Sources told The Intercept, one that finally surfaced publicly during the Ramapo College Conference in late July. Roy, the DNA expert, was giving a presentation titled In the Hot Seat, a primer for genealogists on what to expect if called to testify in a criminal case. There was a clear and simple theme. Do not lie, Roy said. The minute you're caught in a lie is the minute it's going to be difficult for people to use your work. In a statement posted to the Facebook group, Pam Lauritsen, the project's communications director, said the loophole was an artifact of changes GED Match implemented in 2019, when it made opting out the default for all profiles. Quote, while we knew the intent of the change was to make opted out users unavailable, some volunteers with the DNA Doe project continued to use the reports that allowed access to profiles that were opted out, she wrote. That was neither encouraged nor discouraged, she continued. Still, she claimed the access was somehow in compliance with GED Match's terms of service. Now, remember I said Kohberger had an emotional reaction when she said something about being bound by the terms of service? What is going on here?
Two other questions about another database. Micah, is that one that law enforcement uses?
Many in this industry have been known to upload to MyHeritage. Essentially, these databases, you're only bound by the terms of service. And there are workarounds in every one of the databases that somebody knows about and has told you about, or you yourself have tried. There's really no justification for it. You think you're doing the right thing, you want to help, and
which at the time promised that DNA uploaded for law enforcement purposes would only be matched with customers who'd opted in, and that loophole was closed years ago. It was a curious statement, particularly given that Press, the group's co-founder, was among the genealogists who discussed the GED Match loophole in communications reviewed by The Intercept. In 2020, she described the DNA Doe project using an opted-out profile to make an ID and devising a way to keep that quiet. I don't know who The Intercept is, but this is like whistleblower level shit. In July of 2020, GED Match was hacked, which resulted in all 1.45 million profiles then contained in the database to be briefly opted in to law enforcement matching. At the time, BuzzFeed News reported just 280,000 profiles had opted in. GED Match was taken offline until such time that we can be absolutely sure that user data is protected against potential attacks. In the wake of the hack, a genetic genealogist named Joan Hanlon was asked by Verigen to beta test a new version of the site. According to records of a conversation reviewed by The Intercept, Press and Moore, the featured speaker at the Ramapo conference, discussed with Hanlon their tricks to access opted-out profiles and whether the new website had plugged all backdoor access. It hadn't. It's unclear if anyone ever told Verigen. As of this month, the backdoor was still open. Hanlon did not respond to The Intercept's request for comment. In January of 2021, GED Match changed its terms of service to opt everyone in for searches involving unidentified human remains, making the backdoor irrelevant for genealogists who only worked on Doe cases, but not those working with authorities to identify perpetrators of violent crimes. So they changed it to They could do that with unidentified human remains, but they can't do that with perps of violent crimes. From I'm understanding that, right? Law enforcement officers have used genetic genealogy to solve crimes that aren't eligible for genetic investigation per company terms of service and Justice Department guidelines, which say the practice should be reserved for violent crimes like rape and murder only when other reasonable avenues of investigation have failed. In May, CNN reported on a U.S. Marshal who used genetic genealogy to solve a decades-old prison break in Nebraska. There is no prison break exception to the eligibility rules, Larkin noted in a post on her website. This case should have never used forensic genetic genealogy in the first place. A month later, Larkin wrote about another violation, this time in a California case. The FBI and the Riverside County Regional Cold Case Homicide Team had identified the victim of a 1996 homicide using MyHeritage, an explicit violation of the company's terms of service, which make clear that using the database for law enforcement purposes is strictly prohibited absent a court order. And Leah Larkin wrote, the case presents an example of noble cause bias in which the investigators seem to feel that their objective is so worthy that they can break the rules in place to protect others. MyHeritage did not respond to a request for comment. The Riverside County Sheriff's Office referred questions to the Riverside District Attorney, which declined to comment on an ongoing investigation. The FBI also declined to comment. Violations have even come from inside the DNA testing companies. Back in 2019, GED Match co-founder Curtis Rogers unilaterally made an exception to the terms of service without notifying the site's users to allow police to search for someone suspected of an assault in Utah. That's exactly what's happening in Idaho, where Brian Kohberger is awaiting trial for the 2022 murder of 4 University of Idaho students. For months, the state failed to disclose that it had used forensic genetic genealogy to identify Kohberger as a suspect. A probable cause statement methodically laying out evidence that led cops to his door conspicuously omitted any mention of genetic genealogy. Kohberger's defense team is asked to see documents related to the genealogy work as it prepares for an October trial. See, this was written before the trial was even stayed, but the state has refused, saying the defense has no right to any information about the genetic genealogy it used to crack the case. Prosecutors said it was the FBI that did the genetic genealogy work, and few records were created in the process, leaving little to turn over. But the state also argued that it couldn't turn over information because the family tree the FBI created was extensive, including the names and personal information of hundreds of innocent relatives, and the privacy of those individuals needed to be maintained. According to the state, it shouldn't even have to say which genetic database or databases it uses. Kohberger's attorneys argue that the state's position is preposterous and keeps them from ensuring that the work undertaken to find Kohberger was above board. It would appear that the state is acknowledging that the companies are providing personal info to the state and that those companies and the government would suffer if the public were to realize it. Oh boy. That statement by the government implies that the databases searched may be ones that law enforcement is specifically barred from, which explains why they do not want to disclose their methods. Boy, oh boy, that is a lot to unpack. I know that was a lot to take in at once. So let's plan on doing a live discussion on this. I want to hear what you guys think. Please leave your comments below, though. Let's keep the conversation going. Let me know what you think of this information. Let me know if you think the FBI was aware of this or if you think this is something that's just now being exposed, because this can change a lot of things for a lot of people. Please like this video if you like what you've seen today, and subscribe if you want more. I'll see you guys in the next video. Be sure to check out my other videos and playlists for more true crime content. And if that's not enough, you can join our Patreon. Don't have a tinfoil hat? It's okay. We'll make you one. It's that easy. See you guys in the next video.
See you later. Bye.